Imagine you're just, reading a story, and without you even realizing it, the grammar itself is, well, it's picking sides.
Hmm.
Like it's quietly deciding who the heroes are, who the fools are, and secretly pulling you onto the winning team. We tend to think of words like is or was as entirely neutral.
Right, yeah. Like
Like,
they're just there to hold things together.
exactly, just this invisible scaffolding that holds a sentence together. But in ancient texts, specifically, in the original Koine Greek of a very famous story where water is turned into wine, those verb tenses are actually like highly engineered psychological traps.
They really are.
Yeah.
And it is a profound shift in perspective once you start looking at language this way. I mean, we usually assume the text is just a clear window, like we're just looking through it to view historical events.
Sure, just getting the facts.
Exactly. But what we are actually looking at is a carefully constructed lens.
Mhm.
And the author is constantly grinding and polishing that lens to force your eye toward very specific conclusions.
Which changes absolutely everything about how we interact with literature. So if you are listening to this right now, I want you to think about how you process information. Whether you're, I don't know, a linguistics nerd, a theology student, or just someone who loves pulling apart masterful storytelling to see the wiring underneath, this deep dive is going to ruin you for passive reading.
It really will.
Yeah. We are looking at the wedding at Cana. This is found in the Gospel of John, chapter 2, verses 1 through 12. But we aren't here for like a standard literary summary.
No, definitely not.
We are here to decode the secret language of the text. So where do we even begin with this?
Well, to set the stage for how these linguistic tools operate, we need to place ourselves firmly in the environment of a first-century Galilean wedding.
Okay, so total context shift.
Right, because before we can appreciate the subtle manipulation of verbs, we have to grasp the cultural stakes. Because, to a modern reader, running out of wine at a wedding reception is certainly embarrassing.
Yeah, I mean, maybe the catering company messed up, the guests have to switch to sparkling water, and everyone grumbles a bit on the drive home.
Exactly. A minor hiccup.
Right. An inconvenience in an otherwise lovely evening.
But in the ancient Mediterranean world, we are operating under an entirely different cultural script. The dominant sociological framework of this era is the honor-shame dynamic.
Honor and shame.
Yes. A wedding wasn't a 4-hour event on a Saturday afternoon. It was a multi-day, community-wide festival. It was the ultimate display of a family's social standing.
Oh, wow.
Their resources, their commitment to hospitality. The wine flowing freely wasn't just about having a good time. It was a highly visible metric of the groom's family's honor.
So running out of wine wouldn't just be like an inconvenience.
Not at all.
It would be a catastrophic social failure, like a permanent stain on the family's reputation in a culture where reputation was literally your primary currency.
It would be a devastating loss of face. The entire community would remember that this family failed in their most basic social obligation. That is the intense, high-stakes crisis at the center of this narrative.
Okay, that makes it so much heavier.
It does. And so the mother of Jesus discovers this shortage and informs him. He responds with a seemingly cryptic remark about his hour not having come.
Right, which we'll get into.
We definitely will. Yet, he immediately directs the servants to fill 6 massive stone jars. And these are jars meant for Jewish purification rituals with water.
Which is a huge detail.
It is. They draw the water out, carry it to the chief steward who's running the banquet, and the steward is just stunned to find it is the finest wine of the celebration.
So that is the plot we all know, but if you're trying to map this onto a standard timeline, you might be looking for, past, present, and future tenses.
Right.
But we have to throw that timeline out the window for a second. We aren't just talking about when these events happen. We are talking about how the author forces us to perceive them.
And that distinction is the gateway to understanding ancient Greek narrative. I mean, in English, our primary concern with a verb is its tense, the chronological time.
Like, did it happen yesterday? Is it happening now? Or will it happen tomorrow?
Precisely. Ancient Greek, however, is far more obsessed with what linguists call aspect.
Aspect, okay.
Yes. Aspect is the subjective viewpoint of the author regarding the action. It's how the author chooses to portray the flow of time and the shape of the event.
So rather than asking, when did this happen? The Greek verb asks, from what angle am I making the reader look at this?
That's exactly it. And the absolute spine of Greek storytelling, the engine that moves the narrative forward, relies on verbs in the aorist tense.
Aorist.
Aorist, yes. The aorist tense carries what is called perfective aspect. Perfective aspect views an action as a complete singular whole. It looks at the event from a distance with a sense of remoteness. The author was standing back and saying, look at this completed unit of action.
Let me try an analogy here to see if I'm, visualizing this correctly. It sounds like the click of a slide projector.
Oh, I like that.
Like you are sitting in the dark watching a presentation. Click, a wedding happened. The whole event is summarized in one slide. Click, the servants filled the jars. Click, they drew the water. Every time an aorist verb fires, the slide advances and the plot forcefully moves forward one step.
That is an excellent way to conceptualize it. The aorist provides the discrete sequence of events.
Okay.
So in the text, we see the word egenoto, meaning a wedding happened or took place.
Right.
Linguists call this an ingressive action. It bounds the event and drops us into the scene. It's the first slide.
Click.
Exactly.
Click.
Later, we encounter egemizin. They filled the jars.
Yeah.
It doesn't focus on the splashing water or the sweat on the servant's brows.
Yeah.
It views the entire filling process as one finished block of reality.
Click again.
Yep. And at the narrative climax, we read, he poisoned Jesus, did this sign.
Okay, so it's this relentless forward momentum of the story.
Yes.
But an engine can't just run nonstop in a void, right? There has to be a setting. If the aorist perfective aspect is the slide projector clicking forward, how does the author paint the backdrop?
For the backdrop, the author switches to the imperfective aspect.
Imperfective. Got it.
Which in a past narrative is usually carried by the imperfect tense. If the perfective aspect looks at an action from the outside as a completed whole, the imperfective aspect zooms in.
Okay.
It looks at the action from the inside, portraying it as an ongoing state, a process, or a continuous background reality.
Okay, so sticking with the projector analogy.
Let's hear it.
If the aorist is the click moving us to the next slide, the imperfective aspect is like having a GIF looping endlessly in the background of that specific slide.
Yes.
It doesn't move the presentation forward, but it sets the atmosphere.
The looping GIF is a perfect illustration. In John's text, we see this with verbs like the mother of Jesus was there. She isn't performing a completed action. She is an ongoing presence in the scene.
Just continuously being there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We also see Osan, the 6 stone water jars were sitting there. These verbs don't advance the plot a single inch.
Right, they're just part of the scenery.
You could theoretically remove them, and the sequence of clicks would still hold together.
Yeah.
But you would be left with a sterile, empty narrative lacking all atmosphere and context.
I mean, I find this fascinating, but I do have to wonder about the intentionality behind all this.
Okay, what do you mean?
Like, did the author, traditionally the Apostle John, sit at a desk in Ephesus, chew on the end of his quill, and consciously think, I need to deploy a perfective aorist here to achieve maximum punctiliar effect, followed by an imperfective stative verb to suspend the narrative tension?
Right.
Because that sounds like we might be projecting modern academic overanalysis onto, first century conversational Greek.
It is a common critique.
Right.
Really common. But the beauty of this linguistic framework is that it does not require conscious mathematical plotting on the part of the author. We have to consider how language intrinsically shapes thought.
Right.
Take a modern English speaker. If you say, I walked to the store versus I was walking to the store when.
Right, the second one leaves you hanging.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need a degree in syntax to know that the first statement is a complete thought, while the second statement demands a follow-up. You are intuitively structuring reality for your listener. You're telling them, hold on, this is the background for the real action that is about to happen.
So the author of John is doing the exact same thing, just utilizing the inherent tools of Koine Greek. The grammar itself demands that the reader perceives certain things as fleeting turning points and other things as enduring states.
Yes. Linguists refer to this interaction between a word's inherent vocabulary meaning and its grammatical aspect as Actionsart.
Actionsart.
Yeah, it's a German term meaning kind of action.
Yeah.
The author intuitively wields Actionsart to craft a landscape where punctiliar, momentary clicks stand out sharply against ongoing stative backgrounds. It is just how human beings naturally tell compelling stories.
Which brings up something really bizarre about this specific story. If the aorist tense is the engine driving the past tense narrative forward, you would expect the engine to keep running when the characters start interacting.
You would.
But there is a massive glitch in the matrix here. When people actually open their mouths to speak, the author completely abandons the rules of past tense storytelling.
This is one of the most jarring and brilliant features of Greek narrative, and John uses it masterfully. We are entrenched in a story that happened decades in the past, driven by those historical aorist clicks.
Right.
But the moment a character speaks, the author frequently abruptly shifts into the present tense, utilizing what scholars call the historical present.
Even though the wedding is long over, the text literally reads "he says" instead of "he said."
Repeatedly, we see the constant deployment of the word legi, he says, or she says.
Uh,
It introduces the words of Mary, the words of Jesus, and the words of the chief steward. We also see Fanny, the steward calls the bridegroom. These are present tense verbs carrying imperfective aspect.
in the middle of a past tense story.
Yes, exactly. From a linguistic standpoint, this creates a sudden, intense proximity. It yanks the action across time and space and drops it directly into the reader's lap.
It's like, imagine you're sitting at a coffee shop and a friend is telling you about a wild encounter they had in a parking lot last week.
Okay.
They are setting the scene in the past tense. I went to the store, I bought my groceries, I walked out to the car. But as they reach the climax of the story, they suddenly shift gears. They lean in and say, and suddenly this guy walks right up to my window and he looks at me and he says...
Yes. Why do they do that?
Yeah.
What happens to you as the listener in that exact moment?
I stopped thinking about the coffee shop. I feel like I'm standing in the parking lot with them.
Because the fourth wall of time completely shatters.
Exactly. It's like a cinematic camera push right into the actor's face. The speaker wants me to pay absolute attention to the dialogue because that is where the danger or the meaning resides.
That is precisely the psychological mechanism at play. In the field of discourse analysis, which examines how language functions in broader contexts, this phenomenon falls under the ideational metafunction.
The ideational metafunction.
Right. This metafunction deals with how language represents our experience of the world through different types of processes. The dialogue in this story utilizes verbal processes. By shifting to the historical present, the author is signaling that these verbal exchanges are the discourse peaks of the narrative.
The peaks.
Okay.
Highest points of importance.
Think about the actual miracle in this story. The staggering physical transformation of water molecules into high-quality fermented wine.
Yeah.
How much time does the author spend describing that process?
Almost none. We don't see the water turning pink or bubbling or changing viscosity. It happens in the white space between the servants pouring it and the steward tasting it.
The physical mechanics of the miracle are entirely hidden in the gap between two aorist slide clicks. The text glosses over the magic to focus relentlessly on the dialogue. The grammar is shouting at the reader. The physical transformation is merely the vehicle. The conversations about the transformation are where the theology is located.
That's incredible.
The historical present forces you out of your passive observer seat and makes you an active participant in the conversation. You are right there, listening to Jesus negotiate his divine timeline.
Okay, so the author has sped us along with the aorist engine and then grabbed us by the collar with the historical present to make us listen.
Yes.
But a story isn't just action and speech. There is a lot of hidden, silent knowledge in this room. We have a massive banquet where half the people have no idea what just happened. How does the author let us, the readers, in on the secret?
This is where we encounter the pluperfect tense. It's an incredibly specific grammatical tool that allows the author to crack open the cognitive state of the characters.
The pluperfect? That always sounds to me like a tense reserved for, I don't know, Victorian novelists. How does it work in Greek?
Well, the pluperfect tense combines imperfective aspect, that ongoing looping background reality, with a sense of heightened remoteness.
Heightened remoteness.
Right. It doesn't just describe a past event. It describes a deeply entrenched past state of being that was already fully established before the main narrative action ever collided with it.
Oh, interesting.
And John deploys this in verse 9 with surgical precision to create a profound contrast.
Verse 9 is where the chief steward finally tastes the water that has become wine.
Correct. The steward takes a sip, and the text uses a pluperfect verb regarding his mental state, a dei. He translates to he did not know where the wine came from. But in the exact same breath, the author contrasts him with the lowly servants who drew the water, using another pluperfect verb. Odious, they knew.
So the engine of the plot pauses entirely. We aren't moving forward. We are just hanging in the air, looking at the inside of these two different groups' minds.
In discourse analysis, these are classified as mental processes. The author has frozen the physical action to establish a background reality of cognition. And think about how this subverts the expected social hierarchy.
Right, because of the honor-shame culture.
Exactly. The chief steward is the authority figure. He's the master of the feast, the man responsible for the logistics and the quality control. Culturally, He is the one who possesses the knowledge and the power.
And the servants.
The servants are essentially invisible. They are at the absolute bottom of the social ladder, merely moving heavy objects around.
But the pluperfect verbs completely invert that power dynamic. The man at the top is blissfully ignorant, sipping a miracle he doesn't comprehend, while the invisible servants are holding the secrets of the cosmos.
Yes.
And it creates this incredible dramatic irony because the reader is in on the secret too.
Exactly. The author is using grammar to pick teams. Consider the psychological impact on the reader. You're reading this text, and the grammar aligns your perspective directly with the servant.
Because we saw what they saw?
Right. You watch them fill the jars. You know the origin of the wine. You are invited into this exclusive hidden fellowship of insight. The text creates a bond between you, the lowly servants, and the newly called disciples who are witnessing this sign.
And it alienates us from the worldly authority.
It actively distances you from the oblivious steward. You look at him and realize that worldly authority and high status do not equate to spiritual insight.
Wow.
The pluperfect verbs subtly train the reader to distrust earthly hierarchies and to find truth among the servants of Jesus. It is a profound theological argument made entirely through tense and aspect.
It's manipulative in the best possible way.
It really is.
The text is quietly rewiring our allegiances. And speaking of allegiances and authority, that brings us to another layer of how this text operates. If we are looking at social hierarchies, who has power and who doesn't, we have to look at how commands are given.
Yes, we are moving into what linguists call the interpersonal metafunction.
The interpersonal metafunction, okay.
This examines how language negotiates relationships, power dynamics, and social obligations between speakers. When we analyze the dialogue in John 2, we aren't just charting the flow of information, we are mapping the flow of authority.
Okay. How does that work in practice?
Well, it is vividly clear in how commands are issued by Mary and Jesus. They do not make polite suggestions. They do not use language that leaves room for negotiation. They utilize aorist imperative.
Imperatives are commands. An aorist means perfective aspect, that complete, whole, remote action.
Right. They are not asking the servants to begin the process of filling or try to draw some water. They are demanding complete, instantaneous, and whole actions.
Boom, boom, boom.
Exactly. Mary turns to the servants and issues the imperative poiesite, do whatever he says. Jesus then takes absolute command, gemesate, fill the jars, and analysate, draw some out.
So no wiggle room.
None. In the realm of discourse analysis, these are high obligation modalities. They exert maximum interpersonal force.
And the remarkable thing is, the servants just do it. There is no pushback. Nobody says, excuse me, we are out of wine. Why are we hauling dozens of gallons of purification water around? The weight of the aorist imperative simply flattens any resistance.
It does.
But I have to stop here because this brings up the most confusing part of the entire narrative for me.
The exchange between Jesus and Mary.
Yes. We are talking about Jesus wielding this absolute high obligation authority, but just moments before he barks these aorist commands at the servants, his mother comes to him with an implied request. They have no wine.
Right.
And Jesus replies with a rhetorical question that sounds remarkably harsh to modern ears. He says, "What to me and to you, woman?"
It is a notoriously difficult phrase.
It essentially translates to, what does your concern have to do with me? Or not my problem. It sounds like he is aggressively pushing her away and refusing to get involved. But then, almost in the very next breath, he completely reverses course. He orders the servants to fill the jars and performs the miracle anyway?
It seems like a massive contradiction.
It really does. He establishes a boundary and then immediately crosses his own boundary to do exactly what his mother wanted. Does the grammar explain this flip-flop?
The grammar absolutely illuminates what is happening, but we have to look at it through the lens of social deixes.
Social deixes.
Yes, deixes refers to words and phrases that cannot be fully understood without additional contextual information, like pointing a finger.
Like saying, look over there. You have to know where there is.
Exactly. Social deixes specifically refers to how language points to social identities, relationships, and the relative status of the speakers.
Okay, let's unpack social deixes. How do we do this in, everyday English?
Think about how you speak to your boss versus how you speak to your best friend. If you need a favor from your boss, you might say, I was wondering if it might be possible to look at this file.
Right. Very careful.
You use modal verbs, hedging, deferential language.
Yeah.
It maps out your lower status.
Yeah.
If you need a favor from your best friend, you say, hey, grab that file for me. The directness maps out a relationship of equal, intimate footing. We constantly negotiate our social standing through our grammatical choices.
So when Jesus uses the phrase, "what to me and to you, woman," he is establishing a very specific social map.
He is radically redefining the map. In the honor-shame culture we discussed, a son has a profound social obligation to his mother, especially in a public setting.
Sure.
Mary expects him to act within that familial hierarchy to solve the crisis. But Jesus' rhetorical question severs that expectation. He is asserting his absolute independence from human familial structures. He's not being petulant. He's establishing his sovereign boundary.
And he anchors that boundary with another specific verb tense, right?
Yes, he follows the rhetorical question with a perfect tense verb. He says, "My hour has not yet come," using the word haikai.
Haika.
Now, the perfect tense in Greek is fascinating. It describes an action that occurred in the past but has ongoing, lingering, and defining results in the present moment. It carries heightened proximity.
So he isn't just saying, "my hour didn't arrive yesterday."
Exactly. He is saying, the state of my hour not having arrived is the defining, unalterable reality of this exact present moment. And the word for hour, shura, is heavily loaded with Johannine theology.
It doesn't mean the time on the clock.
No. It refers to his divinely appointed sovereign timetable for his ultimate glorification, which points directly to the cross.
So his timetable is dictated by heaven, not by human emergencies.
Yeah.
Not even his mother's social embarrassment can force his hand.
That is the crux of the social deixis here. The grammar positions Jesus as the ultimate, uncommandable actor in the narrative. He cannot be pressured into acting as a divine patron or a local miracle worker to save face for a host. He operates solely on a cosmic schedule.
But then why does he do the miracle?
Because once that independence is firmly established grammatically, once it is undeniable that he is not acting out of obligation or coercion, then he issues those aorist imperatives to the servants.
Oh, I see.
It is not a flip-flop. It is a sequence of ultimate authority. By establishing his boundary first, his subsequent actions demonstrate that he is acting out of his own sovereign divine abundance.
That completely changes the reading. He isn't a reluctant son caving to his mother's nagging.
Not at all.
He is the sovereign lord of the cosmos. He asserts his independence so that when the miracle happens, it is clearly an act of free, divine grace, not a coerced party trick.
And the grammar is actively protecting his theological identity.
My mind is genuinely blown by how meticulous this is.
That's pretty amazing.
I mean, we have looked at all these individual components. The aorist engine clicking the plot along, the historical presence zooming the camera in, the pluperfects letting us read minds, and the interpersonal commands establishing divine sovereignty.
We've covered a lot of ground.
But an engine is just a pile of parts until you assemble it. Let's pull all the way back and look at the whole machine. How does the author string these clauses together to guarantee the reader arrives at the intended destination?
To understand the assembly of the machine, we examine the textual metafunction.
Textual metafunction.
This focuses on how the text hangs together as a cohesive, flowing unit of information. And the glue holding it all together starts with the most basic words in any language. Conjunctions. Words like and, but, and then.
They seem too simple to be profound.
I know, but their psychological impact is massive. The author of John heavily relies on the simple conjunction kai, which means and. He uses it to string events together in an additive, rapid-fire sequence.
Like a chain reaction.
Yes, the mother says this and Jesus says that, and the servants fill the jars and they bring it to the steward.
What does that actually do to the reader's brain?
It creates a breathless momentum. Think about how a child tells a really exciting story.
And then we went to the park, and then I saw a dog.
And then the dog ran away, and then I fell down. Exactly. The repetitive use of and eliminates the space for the listener to pause and analyze. It pulls you rapidly along the timeline, building a sense of inevitability. You are swept up in the current of the narrative.
But the author doesn't only use and, right?
No. When the author needs you to stop and process a shift, either a contrast or a new temporal stage, he switches to conjunctions like de, meaning but, or then, or hush, meaning when.
Okay.
These are the traffic signals of the text, telling your brain to shift gears because the context is changing.
I also want to talk about how the sentences are actually built. Because in English, we are pretty locked into subject, verb, object. The dog bit the man.
Very rigid.
Yeah, if we mix that up, it sounds like Yoda, the man the dog bit.
Right.
But Greek is highly inflected, meaning the endings of the words tell you who is doing what, so the author can put the words in almost any order they want.
Exactly. Greek word order is incredibly flexible. And because of that flexibility, The author uses word order strategically for what is called thematic development.
Thematic development.
The beginning of the sentence is the theme. It's the point of departure, what the clause is about. The end of the sentence is the rame, the new, impactful information the author wants to emphasize.
How does John use this theme and rame structure in the Cana story?
The author consistently fronts temporal and locative circumstances. He starts clauses with phrases like, on the third day, or in Cana, Galilee.
Okay, setting the scene.
By placing these tangible historical details in the theme position, he is anchoring the narrative deeply in physical reality. He is saying, this is not a fairy tale happening in the ether. This is grounded history.
So he builds this incredibly solid historical stage at the front of the sentence.
Yes, and then he he pushes to the very end of the sentence, into the reme position, the astonishing transformative actions.
The miracle itself.
Right, the sheer volume of the water, the revelation of the good wine, the manifestation of glory. These are held back until the final beat of the clause for maximum rhetorical impact.
It's like building a massively sturdy stage so that when you finally drop a 10-ton prop onto it, the stage holds, but the audience feels the shockwave.
That is a brilliant analogy.
He grounds the text in reality so the miracle lands with undeniable weight.
And to ensure the reader doesn't lose the thread amidst all this weight, the text utilizes cohesion chains.
Cohesion chains, what are those?
Think of them as a musical motif in a film score.
Oh, like Darth Vader's theme.
Exactly. You might be watching a scene where the villain isn't even on screen, but the brass section starts playing his specific melody. Unconsciously, your brain is drawn back to the villain. Cohesion chains do the same thing with words. The author threads invisible connections through the paragraphs.
Give me an example of a chain in this story.
The most obvious are lexical chains, the repetition of specific vocabulary. The word oinon, meaning wine, echoes relentlessly through the passage.
Oh, yeah.
The wine runs out, the mother mentions the wine, the water becomes wine, the steward tastes the wine, he praises the good wine. It is a drumbeat, keeping the reader's focus entirely on the element of transformation.
That makes sense.
We also see the repetition of the historical present legi says, keeping the dialogue tense and immediate.
And there are also identity chains, right? Keeping track of who is actually important.
Precisely. The text uses an intricate chain of pronouns, specifically atu, referring back to Jesus.
Even when he's not doing much.
Think about the physical action of this story. Jesus barely moves. The servants are hauling the water, drawing the pitchers, carrying them to the steward. The steward is tasting and calling the bridegroom.
Yeah, Jesus is just giving the orders.
But the pronoun chains ensure that Jesus remains the focal participant of every action. The narrative orbit is entirely locked onto him.
And all of these threads, all of these chains, they all get pulled tight in the final verse.
Verse 11 is the grand finale. The author introduces a demonstrative pronoun that acts as a massive linguistic anchor. Tauton, which means this.
This, it seems so simple.
But in its context, it is incredibly powerful. The verse reads, this, the first of his signs Jesus did. That word this reaches all the way back through the preceding 10 verses.
Sweeping it all up.
It gathers up the wedding, the shame of the shortage, the water jars, the oblivious steward, the obedient servants, the authoritative commands, and it bundles them all into a single, cohesive theological package.
Wow.
And it labels that package a sign.
Not just a random miracle or magic trick, a sign. And a sign, by definition, points away from itself to something greater.
And then the author hits the reader with a triple aorist summary. The perfective engine returns to hammer home 3 massive completed actions.
Click, click, click.
First, he did a poison this sign. Second, he manifested and finishes his glory. Third, his disciples believed epistasin in him.
Sign, revelation, belief, boom, boom, boom. 3 completed slides clicking into place to end the presentation.
It creates an inescapable closed circuit of theological logic. The physical action of the sign inevitably causes the manifestation of divine glory, which inevitably produces the necessary response of belief in those who witness it.
It's an airtight argument.
The author has used every single tool in the linguistic toolbox. The pushing aorists, the pulling historical presence, the ironic pluperfix, the high obligation imperatives, the breathless conjunctions. He has funneled the reader directly into this final triad.
You literally cannot read the text carefully without being pushed, psychologically and grammatically, toward the conclusion that witnessing the glory of the sign demands the response of faith. The grammar doesn't just describe the theology. The grammar is the theology.
That is the ultimate realization of discourse analysis. The mechanics of language are never, ever neutral. They are actively, constantly shaping our perception of reality.
This has been an absolutely incredible journey. If you look closely, John chapter 2 isn't just a quaint, nice story about Jesus saving a young couple from a catering disaster.
It's definitely not.
It is a highly engineered, meticulously crafted piece of linguistic architecture. Every tense, every shift in perspective, every conjunction is placed there to grab you, pull you onto the side of the servants, make you listen to the sovereign commands of Jesus, and ultimately push you into belief.
It really forces us to respect the profound sophistication of ancient texts.
It does. And as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you, our listener, with a thought to chew on.
Okay, what is it?
We've just spent the last hour doing a discourse analysis of a 2,000-year-old text to see how the author manipulated time and perspective to shape reality. But think about the discourse analysis of your own life's narrative.
How do you mean?
Well, when you tell your own stories to yourself in your own head or to others at a dinner party, what are you doing with the grammar?
Oh, that's interesting.
What events of your life do you banish to the background? What gets assigned that looping, imperfective aspect, treated as just passing scenery?
Right.
And more importantly, what moments do you suddenly switch into the historical present? What are the traumas or the triumphs that you pull into the present tense to make immediate, defining, and raw? The grammar we use to tell our own stories doesn't just reflect our reality. It actively shapes what we and the people listening to us believe about who we are. Are you foregrounding your moments of grace and abundance, or are you endlessly looping the moments where the wine ran out?
That is a deeply challenging and profound question to walk away with. Language shapes us just as much as we shape it.
Exactly. Well, thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the hidden mechanics of ancient texts. We hope this entire conversation encourages you to keep seeking the deeper layers of the information around you. Don't settle for the passive reading. Keep pulling up those floorboards. Until next time, keep diving deep.